works very well. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick my filigree up off of my tape, and I'm just doing my frame, of course, to get started. Part 1 of my frame, and then part 2 of my frame. I need to manipulate this a little bit because I need to force these together. Okay. And as I said previously, these are very easy to manipulate, but sometimes they can be a little fussy. Guess I'll be editing this out of this video. This one's behaving itself. So I'm going to butt those 2 pieces together here, and I'm probably going to need to work with this one a little bit more. If you need to hit it lightly with a mallet, you can. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and solder those together, and I'm going to be using a different type of solder. We're going to be using this Russian filigree powdered solder, and it comes just like this, and it's in a powdered form. Now you don't put it on in a powdered form, you need to add a little bit of distilled water. So you just take a tiny touch of it, you do not need a lot here, put a little bit of the powder in the cap. Then you're going to take just a touch of distilled water, which again, don't need a lot, just a very little bit. Just mix a very little bit in there. And then we're going to mix this up like a paste. And it will dry up eventually anyway later, so don't worry if you put a little bit too much in, someone else can use it. It's a little more paste-like. So we're actually going to paste or brush this on to the tips here. And I just need a little touch of it. I don't need any flux. I just need that little tiny bit of solder. We're going to be using a lighter torch with a very low tip. The reason being is that sterling silver melts very easily, so you do not want your tip to be too high, or else you're going to run into issues with melting your wire and then starting your frame all over again. So my tip is very small. I'm just going to slowly start to heat up the area. Same way you solder everything else, you need to slowly start to heat everything up. One great thing about sterling is sterling solders together on its own as it melts together. So if we run into any issues, the sterling will probably do its own job of soldering itself together. It's going to be a very quick process. We're going to touch the flame and pull the flame away. Touch the flame, pull the flame away. Kind of like a flutter and a pull. So my top just soldered together, opened very quickly. Just want to check my tweezers. It's two sides got a little stuck. I don't want them to be together. So I want these two tops and this bottom to be together, so I'm just gonna kind of force these a little bit more. Touch a little bit more solder at the top. Okay, so I can punch this. Now that that's quenched, now I'm going to go ahead and throw that in the pickle for a few minutes. And then I'm going to come back and I am going to then go ahead and start to fill in the interior of my pieces. So now this is pickled. I want to make sure it's laying very flat because everything needs to touch. So now I'm going to be filling in all my round wire, my larger round wire. So I'm going to place them on the inside. And then you can see I have my decorative wire that will remain to fill in at the top once this gets soldered on. So before I do anything else, I need to press this down flat, and I need to make sure that all my pieces are touching two parts of each wall. This one here is causing me problems. I need to flatten it out a little. Okay, looks like my solder joint popped up here a little bit, so I'm going to fix that while I'm in here. Then you just repeat the steps. Take your Filagree paste, paint your Filagree paste, on all of your corners. Anywhere would you like your connection to be? It does get easier as you move on, in case anyone was concerned. This one is just being such a pain in the butt. It's okay. Alright, now we're ready to solder. Same situation. You notice that the solder will start to dry like the flux. So we're starting to melt. You need to use a solder pick to make sure your pieces don't move. Everything should stay flat. Oops. You're also probably going to have to reposition a few times. You'll see the solder liquefy very quickly. It's going to melt like easy solder. Pretty sure that's on, so I'm going to quench this and then give it the dreaded finger test. It's not stuck to the punch up. Now the dreaded finger test is when you grab it, you have to wiggle the pieces. Oh, and there it goes. There goes one of the pieces. And if they start to pop off, you're going to have to resolder those pieces down. So I'm going to lay this back down. I'm probably going to pickle it, and then I'm going to repeat the process. And then finally, lastly, I'll be filling in my smaller pieces and then be completing them last. So after this process is done, then you'll be able to see the finalized piece.